companies now look for ways to apply automation in their operations and technology advances, RPA is seen as an integral part of digital transformation initiatives. My guest, Ahed Hamzé, that is working with digitalization and automation, is here today to help us understand RPA, how it's used, and what to think about in terms of implementation. Welcome, Ahed.
Thank you, Danar. It's good to be here.
Nice to having you here. I'm very glad that you could join us. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, that was a long time in the making, so it's really good that we have found the time to do this.
Yes, absolutely. I know that you have a very busy schedule, so I'm very happy that you could take the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
Ahed, you have a long history working in terms of innovation and automation, both in public and private sector. Could you please tell us briefly about your background?
Absolutely. So I was previously from Sweden, Gothenburg, moved to Gävle to study at the University of Gävle, where I studied industrial management with focus on logistics and on management, which is two parts that I like very much in my work and I've been interested in. And then coming back to Gothenburg after the studies, working in the state-owned Almi, which is a company that do have advisory and loans to startups, and there I worked with the market, and I worked also as a business advisor. And later, moving on, I came in contact or I read about RPA, which is the automation or the technology that we're talking about today, and found back then, this was like 3 years ago, a newly started company that was named New Innovation Management, where I contacted them, and it was a perfect match. I was very interested in the company, and the company got interested in me, so we joined forces, and I started at the company. Later on, so we don't get confusion, later on the New Innovation Management, the company changed names to ACOA, another kind of automation. And here we are.
And your interest for innovation and automation, where does this come from?
Yes, when it comes to innovation, I think it's mostly because I come from a younger generation, let's say, and we live in a time that is very fast moving. Things change a lot, and thus the need to innovate and to keep up, basically, and you can only keep up with the new times through innovation, according to me. And when it comes to automation, it's more a interest of management and of processes and how to make the processes better and optimize the processes rather than automation. The automation is rather a tool to be able to handle the processes, and thus comes the interest of automation as well.
Yes, and let's just dive into today's main focus, that is RPA, robot process automation. And before we just start, when you explain what this is, I have taken the picture from the Gartner quadrant, the magic quadrant, where we see the different softwares. So basically, what can you tell us about what RPA is and the different software we see in this picture?
Absolutely. This is a classic picture over here. The Gartner quadrant. So RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, which basically is a software installed on your computer. Let's say a software robot that automates processes, basically. So you teach the robot to do a process. For example, I want each month our company employs a couple of employees, and thus we have an onboarding. We need to for example, order a computer, a phone, and some accounts. And this one person who does this process for each new person that comes into the company. And this is a pretty standardized process. So why not automate the process and let the robot do that process? So it's kind of doing processes, a robot that does regular processes on your computer or on a computer, basically.
So basically, just to follow up on that, we have the physical robots that is in maybe in the production making cars, and this is what we are talking about is software in the computer, right?
Exactly. So when we talk about robots, a lot of people, for the first time, a lot of people think about the physical robots like in big industries and so on. So this is no physical robot. You can't see the robot. It is installed on your computer, works. See it as a digital like a colleague of yours that exists in your computer and does whether it's on your computer or another computer, and does processes or standardized processes, basically. Yes.
And what also you said that it can it's software that because we mentioned that we have, when I work on the computer by myself, I have the keyboard, I have the mouse. So this robot as a software can, how do you say, mimic the movement that usually a human can do.
Absolutely. So usually you can see how the robot works at your interface. Which basically means that you see when the keystrokes are when the keyboard are like when the bot presses the keys, so to say. So if you want to in a field where you want to log into a system, you will see the bot writing in the like the username and the password, and you see it press login. So all the stuff that you usually do on your computer, the bot will absolutely do exactly the same if you tell it to do the same, basically.
Yeah, interesting. And how is it used today, based on what you have seen and on the different companies you have worked with?
Yes, so there's a couple of companies that provide this technology. Well, as you can see in your picture here, it is like UiPath, you have Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, NICE, and a couple of other ones. So this is basically used as such as you implement, depending on which you are, which provider you are using. You install the robot, you have some sort of let's call it coding or learning the bot what to do. Basically, you tell it, okay, let's we now want to code this process, and then you deploy it into production. And those processes could be, as you have in your picture there, it could be in customer services, it could be in accounting, financial services, HR, and so on. Mostly it's used in shared services, as like financial services and human resources, where you have, for example, the onboarding process that we talked about. You get to do it for all of the company, and then you could implement it for such service in your company. And it's also, well, RPA is used in different industries as well. It could be used because you have those shared services in shared service centers in basically all industries, whether it is the automotive industry, in healthcare, you have those types of departments and so on. So you can use RPA in different industries and in different departments within the company itself or organization itself.
And you mentioned the different software providers. You mentioned
Yes.
two of them, and in UEC, this is Gartner's picture of where the leaders are. But there are so many different providers. What should we look for those who want to implement? What kind of the differences are there between these softwares in a more overview way?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if we, well, usually people tend to talk about those three in the top quadrant, the top right quadrant, let's say. So UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere. And from my experience, those are the most used, so to say. So there's a couple of differences with regard to each provider. For instance, if you look at UiPath has a open community where you could easily access learning centers. For example, I want to learn how this works. Everything is free. There is a community where you could ask your questions. There is a community edition type of software or trial software which you could use, and so on. Whereas the other ones, or Blue Prism, for instance, are more locked in that sense. So it's not a community-based as UiPath is. And I think one important thing to have in mind when you're going to choose the provider is that, okay, am I working with, what kind of applications am I working with? Am I working with a lot of image recognition and Citrix application, for instance? Then I think, for instance, UiPath, which is the one who's, I think, leading the market right now, is better when it comes to image recognition and Citrix applications and stuff. Blue Prism has been in the field for a long time. Very reliable provider, but not changing in the same pace as UiPath are doing. I think Automation Anywhere is more used in the Americas, not so much in Sweden. I haven't seen a lot of organizations using Automation Anywhere so far. And also, I think the interface where you develop the bots are very different, UiPath and Blue Prism, whereas UiPath has a very easy interface where you can visualize the process, like draw the process, and very much a library as a tool to access your activities. I think we will talk about that or later. Blue Prism, you need to build your library of activities. For instance, I want to open an application in UiPath. An open application activity already exists, whereas in Blue Prism, you need to build that activity. So there's a lot of differences. It depends on you as a company, how, or organization, what type of skills do you have in-house, and what are the licenses that you want to, a license model that you want to buy, and such will make the way for which provider you choose, I think.
So it's an organization need, and I think there maybe your expertise is coming in to choose the right processes to automate.
Definitely. So it's always the organization need that should be the one you have in mind when you choose the provider, but also which process you need to automate in first place, definitely.
And then my last question here I had on this slide is regarding the implementation process. So for us that are very interested, maybe in an organization, in an IT department, want to implement RPA, what should we start as the first step?
Yes, so the first step, I would say, or like if you Google, for example, okay, RPA implementation, the first step is always choose the right processes, for instance. And what is the right process? A right process for my organization is not the right process for your organization. So how should I choose the right process? So I think the first step is to understand, okay, why do I want to do this? What benefit am I seeking? I think this is the first step, to understand what benefits am I seeking and why are we doing this. And from there, you could choose the right processes. So if you know what benefits you want, for instance, I want to be more effective, or I want to, for example, I work in a customer service and my objective is to have a lead time or an answer time to a customer on 1 day instead of 10 days. Then I should look at processes that have where we have this pain today, like of long answering times, and look at those processes and not look at processes where we can't optimize too much. Do you see my point?
Yeah, start with the why. That's what I am hearing from you.
Exactly. So that's the first thing. And then after that, depends on the maturity of your organization. So if it's not a really mature company when it comes to technology, and not used to technology and not used to change and stuff like that, then you need to maybe start with a small, not so critical process to try it out in your organization, and to have to get the people with you, basically, because this is a technology that when implemented the first time, people may feel afraid because will this bot take my work? This questions will arise. So you need maybe to test it on a non-critical process and to show them that this is not a technology to replace you as a human, but it is a tool to help you as a human. And from there, start to visualize the process, maybe re-optimize or reroute the process. Look at the process. Okay, is this when you choose the process? Is this the most suitable way doing the process? When we do it in a manual way, are we doing it in the best way? If not, we may rebuild the process and then automate the process. So we don't want to, let's say, automate an already faulty process. So let's make the process good, optimize the process, and then automate it.
Very good advice, and maybe also not be afraid to ask the experts. You take contact with you. It's maybe also because that's also the things you mentioned here. There's a lot of pre-work before we can choose the right process.
Of course. I think the biggest pitfall here is, a lot of those or this technology a lot of times are marketed as very easily to work with it, which is true. It is very easy to work with if you know how to work with it. so easy to implement, yes, if you know how to implement it. So to begin with, yeah, definitely I would say ask the experts, or don't be afraid to listen to other companies or other organizations that have done this journey.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that the interface, and I think we have one video that in this slide will explain. I think this is invoice extraction and processing, and we will take a look at this, and then you will explain to us what we see here.
Absolutely. Yes, so I think you saw there's like 4 or 5 steps there,
Mm,
and there's activities that the bot can do. But the power of the bot is when you combine a lot of those activities. For instance, reading a document, filling in the details, and then sending an email. There you will have a full process. This video comes from UiPath. So what we are seeing in front of us is the UiPath interface, and this is what they call the studio,
mhm.
which is the developing instance, or the instance where you develop the bot basically, and tell the bot how to do it. And as you can see, it is basically as a flow chart,
Mhm.
where you have the start from the green, the green arrow, the up is the start, and then you have the ways where the bot should go. And in some instances, you have some decisions the bot needs to consider. For instance, is this invoice over 500K or under 500K? Then go this way or that way. You have the activities there. It's a drag and drop. Basically, this tool is drag and drop tool. So you have the activities in the library, and then you could, for instance, drag the flow decision activity, put it there, and connect it to the previous activity, which will make the bot understand, okay, from the previous activity, which is maybe is open the application, then I need to take a decision on whether to continue either to the right or to the left.
Yeah, it seems very simple as well when we see, because for those who have worked with process, this is kind of some flow chart, as you said. But one thing I also see is the different SAP. So the software can connect with applications. Is that correct?
Yes, basically the software, and also this is the power of such technology.
Mhm.
The software works in the same interface as you as a human. So if I can log into SAP, or if I can log into I don't know, let's say Visma or whatever, then the bot can does it. All it needs is an account to the system,
Mhm.
and then it will use the same interface as I do as a human, and it will log in and using the same steps as I do. So it can connect to a lot of different systems. Most systems that you can connect with, it will, or it can connect with all the systems basically that you use using the interface. It also could connect. So UiPath has also a collaboration with a lot of other companies, so it could also connect and using not the interface, but using, let's say, in some type of integration. So you have a set of activities for example Microsoft, and then it will do them in the background instead of the foreground in the interface.
Interesting. And I think we will post the full video for those who want to see the full 3 minutes. But I think we will just see that, and very good explained there, because now I think what strikes me is the simplicity, but also the different connections that you can make with the software.
Definitely.
And I had, for my next part is what we call, I think you mentioned in the previous slide as well, what happens with the human in this era of automation. And I think
Yeah.
one question is that how should how should organization respond when the technology development is happening in this very fast pace? What is your view and advice for organizations?
Well, my first advice is don't forget the humans, basically. So you have humans who has done this work or those processes for quite some times. This may be some administrator at the finance service that have done this process all along. You need to talk with those people. You need to make them understand that this is a tool and not a replacement. That you as a human are meant to do something, I would say, more creative or more like value creating than just clicking the same buttons all over. And for organization, we all know that we are in very hard, and let's say, I don't know if this is the correct word, but somewhat interesting times as well with COVID-19, when the whole pandemic started and we shut down countries. We tend to forget that there is processes, there's economy that needs to keep going, and there's processes and organizations that are dependent on that processes are kept going. So how do we do this if we cannot automate such processes that should be automated or can be automated? So I think a lot of companies now will respond in this way, that they will look at, okay, what can we automate? What should we automate? And they will start to look into it, because we have in these months, previous months, we have seen a lot of companies that has been going bankrupt and couldn't do their work because all of a sudden everything stopped. And what if you could still work even if you need to go home? That's basically what this technology is up for.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this is as a colleague, like we don't need to replace the human. It can be something that can add value. For example, for myself, I worked in logistics, where we do a lot of manual and repetitive tasks on the different applications in the computer. So it's a very important way to see it, that could help us humans to reduce our stress and burden when it comes to repetitive tasks.
Definitely. I just wanted to confirm that. I think I saw a report, I think it was like a year ago or something, in the Swedish newspaper, and specifically in Gothenburg's newspaper, where it stated that like over 50% of all the workers in the region are feeling that they cannot, or they have tasks that amounts to more than 8 hours per day. Which means that they don't have time to do all the tasks during one day, which they should do during one day, or which the company have told them to do during one day, basically. So when you have this stress of thinking, okay, I can't finish my job today, but I was intended to do that, and such, you will have people, as we say in Sweden, hitting the wall, basically, and getting sick. So why don't we use technology that we have to help those people to be able to finish their day feeling that, okay, now I can go home, and if I feel that I have done what I was intended to do during the day.
So technology development for the people, not replacement. That's what you mean here.
Definitely.
Yeah, and as a last question, if we look in the broader perspective, not only RPA, but also when it comes to automation, a broader field, what's your trend scouting regarding this? What will happen maybe in the future, next years? You talked about the COVID pandemic. What do you see moving forward?
Yeah, so moving forward, as I said earlier, I think we will see more and more companies implementing automations in some way or another, whether it's RPA or another intelligent automation or technologies. And that's just because we need to maintain working during times, for example, vacation times, where we know that Sweden basically everyone is on vacation now, everyone but me, but that means that companies are slowing down during periods of times, and in order to maintain a good set of or to maintain the same like power of workforce, maybe we need to start to automate even more. And of course, I'm talking a lot about people and how this is not replacing people and how this should be a tool for people. But of course, there will be times where people get replaced. I'm not saying that this is not happening, but the important thing, or what I think we will see in our society moving forward, is that we need to change the competences of people. So instead of working with stuff that the bot now does, maybe I will have a competence, or I will learn how to maintain that bot. For instance, if the bot doesn't work, or if our internet connection or whatever breaks, then I need to be the one for solving that. Or if the bot, for instance, need changing in the process that it does, we want it to do something else, then we need someone who could do those changes. So we will see more and more, I think, new competencies on the market, people learning new stuff, and thus creating more jobs than taking away jobs.
So it's both interesting but also challenges ahead. That's
definitely
the way forward. But Ahed, I want to end this very interesting discussions we had, and also thank you for your time. But before we end, I wonder how people can come in contact with you.
Absolutely. So as I said, I work at Akoa, another kind of automation. You could find me and the company on LinkedIn. Ahed Hamzé on LinkedIn. Ahed.hamzé@akoa.com. And I think those are the two main ways to come in contact with me.
I will share your LinkedIn in this post and also in this video, so people can contact you. But with that, I think I want to again thank you for taking the time to speak with us. It has been very interesting to learn more about your interest of area, and I wish you a very pleasant week. And also, I know that you'll take vacation soon. I wish you the best, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Thank you for having me, Danar. It was a real pleasure. And